President Trump's poll numbers are absolutely surging to an all-time high in the midst of this coronavirus crisis. That's right. We're going to take a look at the latest polling and how President Trump is handling the crisis and look at a forecast model to see what it all means for the November election. You're going to absolutely love it. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Wonderful to be with you. As always, a super happy quarantined Wednesday to each and every one of you. I certainly hope you're all doing well and are safe and sound at home. A warm welcome to all of our first-time viewers. We post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of some super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You're going to love this online community here at this channel. It'll be a privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel as we together celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. Now, before we get into President Trump's surging poll numbers, make sure to download your free gift, which we put together just for you. We're calling it our Fake News Antidote. It is a compilation of over 20 sites that I go to for my news each and every day. You can download it completely free at the link down below in the pinned comment section. I think you're really going to enjoy this resource. It's been a blessing to put it together for you. And finally, let me ask you, why do you invest? Is it mainly for financial reasons? What if you had a different perspective, maybe one that included making a positive impact on America? Well, our sponsor, American Values Investments, they specialize in helping patriotic Americans invest in companies that best reflect timeless American values, values like integrity, caring, and courage. Even during economic downturns, which may include a decline in their stock price, these companies, with the help of their shareholders, are still having a positive impact on our country. Now, of course, there's risk in the stock market, and this ad does not constitute an endorsement, but if you want to learn more about how your investments can help America, well, then check them out at AmericanValues.com or simply click on the link below. Tell them Dr. Steve sent you. You'll be glad that you did. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. The latest Gallup poll has Trump's approval numbers in the stratosphere during this whole coronavirus crisis. The poll that was released yesterday found that Trump's approval rating for handling the crisis stands at an astonishing 60%. 94% of Republicans approve. That's a stunning number. 60% of independents and even nearly 30% of Democrats. Trump's overall approval rating stands at 49%, which ties his highest approval rating from January this year. Now, this Gallup poll came out on the same day that a Monmouth University poll was released that showed, interestingly enough, that more Americans approve of President Trump's response to the coronavirus pandemic than the media's reaction to it. The Monmouth poll found that 50% of the public approved of President Trump's behavior during the crisis, while only 45% approved of the way the mainstream Marxist media has behaved, which is really, if you think it through, just absolutely hilarious. We noted in an earlier video that public trust in the media it continues to erode during this whole crisis. According to Statista.com, 47% of Americans said that they did not trust the mainstream media's coronavirus information. The Monmouth poll is showing similar results, with 60% of Republicans and 52% of independents saying that the media has done a bad job in their coverage of the virus. Amen to that. Now, these polls are showing a surge in relation to the polls that were coming out late last week that showed President Trump within earshot of a 60% approval rating. So ABC, in partnership with Ipsos, conducted a poll that found a full 55% of Americans approved of the president's management of the crisis. And what was so significant about this poll was that it was almost a complete inverse, a reversal of what we saw the previous week when only about 43% approved of Trump's handling of the pandemic, while 54% disapproved. So we're seeing a massive surge in support in just the last couple of weeks. And this ABC poll corroborated a Harris poll released last week that found that President Trump's overall approval rating jumped by 4 points from 49% to 53% in less than a week. So obviously very, very significant jump. That's his overall job approval rating. In terms of how he's handling the crisis, his approval during that same time period actually jumped 5%, 5 points, from 51% to 56%. So we saw 2 independent polls late last week with almost the exact same approval rating. They were off by just 1 percentage point. And that showed that President Trump was, at the end of last week, in range of a near 60% approval in the midst of all of this, which is gigantic to say the least. Well, now, as of yesterday's Gallup poll, we saw that President Trump has officially crossed that 60% threshold. Now, here's why it's important to be keeping an eye on Trump's approval rating and all this. I've shared with you before on other videos the importance of what's called the primary model for election forecasts. So this is going to be an important guide for us going on towards November throughout the rest of the year. But this is the model used by the Stony Brook University professor Helmut Norpoth. It's known as the primary model. And according to Norpoth's model, the popular vote winner in the primary, the early primaries, always goes on to win the general election. And what's so interesting is that Norpoth bases such an observation by studying elections going back to 1912, which is the first time when the candidates had to win a number of primaries. And in each case, the candidate that was stronger in the early primaries went on to win the general election. The model has a near perfect record in predicting presidential election outcomes. And so as a result, Norpoth, of course, predicted that Trump would in fact win the 2016 election. And that's because he recognized that while Hillary barely managed to squeak by the primary challenge from Bernie Sanders, Trump soundly defeated, 15, 16 of the Republicans' finest, earning more votes than any Republican candidate in history, by the way. Now, if you don't know, Norpoth has just run his numbers for the 2020 election. And as of now, according to his election forecast model, Trump has a 91% chance of beating Joe Biden in November. Now, again, to keep this in perspective, back in 2016, Trump had an 87% chance of beating Hillary, according to that forecast model. He now has a 91% chance of beating Biden. And this is because of two reasons. One, Biden, until the South Carolina primary, Biden was actually considered politically dead. He was trounced in Iowa. He was trounced in New Hampshire. He was trounced in Nevada. Whereas President Trump has been setting new records for an incumbent seeking re-election. Trump is basically getting 2 or 3 times the vote shares that Obama got back in 2012, which is the last time an incumbent ran for re-election. So that's the first indicator that Trump is going to absolutely trounce Biden in November. And the second is what's known as the incumbent advantage. Incumbents go into an election with a huge advantage over their opponents. And that's especially true of a president. Since 1932, we've only voted out an incumbent president once, and that was Jimmy Carter back in 1980. Now, of course, George Herbert Walker Bush lost re-election in 1992, but that was after the Republicans held the White House for 12 years. The principle of the pendulum swing is that each party holds the White House for about 8 years, for 2 terms. So there's a noticeable pendulum swing from one party to the next after 8 years. What made George Herbert Walker Bush so exceptional was that he was technically Ronald Reagan's 3rd term. So Norpoth is predicting a 91% likelihood that Trump is going to win re-election. However, if you go to his primary model website, there's a disclaimer. And the disclaimer is that due to the unprecedented nature of the coronavirus, Norpoth may have to change his prediction, especially in light of any possible crack in Trump's support. And so this is why Trump's approval ratings during this time are so important. If this model is so dead on accurate, and if its prediction of Trump's reelection is being qualified based on a possible erosion in Trump's approval numbers, then that gets my attention. And so I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on those numbers. And the good news is that with every single poll coming out, we're seeing Trump really within the highest approval ratings yet of his presidency, which means that we are certainly on track towards an absolute blowout in November. Now, before you go, you definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on a very notable Italian virologist who's arguing that political correctness doomed Italy's response to the coronavirus, and now the nation is paying for this left-wing liberalism. It's going to absolutely make you more determined than ever to get rid of these lunatic left-wing nuts. So make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.